Do Brighton have a new secret weapon? And how are they going to use it going forward? Welcome along to Seagulls Central. My name is Adam MacDonald and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for clicking on this video and returning. If you haven't already and you find yourself coming back, hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on and join the biggest, the best Brighton fan community out there on YouTube at the moment. Right, what I want to do is speak around something new that I think we're seeing in this Brighton side that's evolved throughout the season as we've got into kind of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games of the season. And as we're now heading into that Christmas period and we're beginning to have a few new options in terms of people coming back from injuries. And I want to just kind of assess something that I think has emerged. And that thing is the Brighton left-hand side of the field, and that particularly the combination between Maxim de Kuyper and Ferdi Kadioglu, and how, for example, the return of mitoma, which we're potentially going to see on Wednesday night against Aston Villa, will affect that, and also things like Tommy Watson, his availability, Diego Gomez and the way we've played him out there, and also the way that in the next few weeks we're going to see Carlos Baleba become unavailable as AFCON starts, and mainly just think about how we'll deal with that. But I really want to focus on that left-hand side and reflect on what was a brilliant game in midweek, on the weekend, against Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, and the way that we saw such a brilliant combination between Ferdi Kadioglu and Maxim de Kuyper. Now, I think it's interesting. When we signed both of these players, it did feel, not strange, but I think, particularly with the Maxim de Kuyper one, we'd obviously sold Pervis Estupiñán. We weren't necessarily sure whether we were going to sell him. It wasn't one of those where, as the season was coming towards a close last year, we were thinking he's definitely going to be one that's off. It felt a bit 50-50. Was he going to go to Man United? Was he going to go abroad? He might have even stayed. We lose him, and actually we signed a player who, profile-wise, I would say is quite different to Pervis Estupiñán. I've seen a lot of revisionism around Pervis Estupiñán and people talking around the way we've maybe upgraded or the way that he wasn't a particularly great player. He's obviously not doing brilliantly at AC Milan by all reports, but let's make no mistake, Pervis Estupiñán for Brighton Hove Albion for the most part was an absolutely fantastic player. And yes, he had that injury, in the 2022-23 season, 23-24 season. He had that injury which probably on the other side of that we never quite saw the best of him again. But he was a brilliant player for Brighton. I would argue maybe you could say one of our best left-backs in the modern era. Marc Cucurella for a season was great, but I don't think his kind of length he played for us, you can really say that he was that amazing. Obviously, Gaëtan Bong in the promotion-winning team, brilliant. But actually, I think in terms of the impact and the quality, let's compare quality, Pervis Estupiñán so far has been the best. And I think signing Maxim de Kuyper seemed like an interesting one because by all accounts, we weren't signing a very good defensive right back. We were signing a wing back. We were signing someone who liked to get forward. All of the videos, all of the highlights, all of the compilations, all of the data around him showed goal scoring, showed assists, showed bursting into the box, really high energy, running up and down that left-hand side. And that's kind of what we, Estupiñán, a very, very good attacking left back, but actually a pretty decent defensive left back as well, and not one you'd see crashing into the box every single week. And I think it was interesting. Obviously, we started the season with Maxim de Kuyper at left back and Ferdi Kadioglu, who we hadn't seen loads of last season. Was he a right back? Was he a left back? Was he a winger? Was he a right winger? Was he a left winger? We kind of have seen him in the start of this season in the first 5 to 10 games play a little bit everywhere. We saw him at right wing. We saw him at left wing. We saw him at right back. And actually, I think he's now found his home at left back. Now, it's interesting because Maxim de Kuyper started the season at left back and actually looked very good. I would say, he was one of the signings in terms of starting the season that started the most smoothly. You think back to those first 5-6 games, he was playing every week. He looked absolutely not out of place. He looked like a decent defensive left back. Obviously, he kind of loses his place in the side. Maybe did he get a little injury along the way? I can't remember. Anyway, loses his place in the side. Ferdi Kadioglu comes in and does brilliantly. And we're seeing a player who, to be fair, I think I was kind of slightly concerned about whether he was a brilliant defensive left back. I would actually say that he's shown to be very, very decent defensively. Yes, maybe that's not one of his strengths. Clearly, his strength is getting forward, linking up with the other player on the left-hand side. But actually, I think he's, maybe he's slightly going under the radar this season in terms of how well he's doing. So my question is that our secret sauce at left wing? Does it make it difficult for Karu Mitoma to come automatically back into this side when you've got Ferdi Kadioglu doing so brilliant at left back, and surely you've got to keep him there, but Maxim de Kuyper being absolutely electric as we saw at the start of the season, but also particularly against Nottingham Forest in the first 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, where it was an absolute onslaught on that left-hand side from Maxim de Kuyper at left wing. It's interesting. What would you do? There's reports, Fabian Hurzeler spoke in the press on Tuesday around he might be available, Karu Mitoma, on Wednesday night to return. It's been, 10, 11, 12 games that he's been out injured. No, sorry, probably hasn't been that long, has it? Probably, I actually don't know. I think it is around, it's probably been about 2 months, really. So I think it was the Chelsea game was his last game, which was kind of mid-September, was that? So, it's been a good 2 months. Probably have played about 10 games in that time, to be fair. Does he come straight back? And he's obviously not going to be ready, is he? He's not going to be ready, fit and firing. And considering how well we saw Maxim de Kuyper play against Ferdi Kadioglu, would you stick with that? Well, I think I would definitely stick with it against Aston Villa, but do you do that going forward? I suppose the question you've got to ask around this kind of new era is, where is Karu Mitoma still a number one choice at left wing? Is he? I think you've got to say he probably is. Despite the fact that Maxim de Kuyper is playing brilliantly, Ferdi Kadioglu is playing brilliantly, I think in a few weeks' time we will probably see Karu Mitoma coming back into this team, looking like the kind of focal point for Brighton going forward. It's easy to forget, because we're seeing players play so well, how good he can be when he's fit and firing. But I think for the short term, we found a nice little secret weapon here, haven't we? The combination between the two of them, Kadioglu and de Kuyper, seems to be really, really smart. They link up really nicely. They both complement each other's games. They can flip and flop and switch and get forward and back. One can fill in for the other, and it makes us quite dynamic. You obviously see Ferdi Kadioglu at times, like we see with Weaver, tucking into that midfield position, providing an extra body in the middle of the park. You see Maxim de Kuyper dropping in at times when Ferdi Kadioglu comes centrally. You see them both overlapping each other. So actually, I think in terms of our options, it's really, really encouraging. Maybe going forward, I would say we need a little bit more depth at fullback generally. You obviously have Weaver at that right back slot. It does feel like he's going to be one who stays there going forward. But, do you want to try and maybe go and get another right back? Because if we're kind of using both of our left backs at left wing, do you want other options? Maybe another versatile fullback to fill in at left back or right back? I suppose maybe Hurzeler's argument would be he's got Weaver who can play as a fullback. He's got Veltman who can play as a fullback. Obviously, Veltman came on at left back in that game when de Kuyper came off. You've also got Milner as well. He can play as a fullback. You've got Hinshelwood who can play as a fullback. So maybe it's not as clear cut as needing to kind of get another fullback. But I do think it's interesting, and I would really like to see over the next few weeks that left-hand side combination between those two flourish. It will be interesting. Obviously, we've got Karu Mitoma to come back, and perhaps in the Villa game we'll see him come on with 30, 20 minutes to go, and that'll just be a bit of a sign to see whether he's ready to kind of come back into the cut and thrust of things. But we're going into a busy Christmas period now, and we're on a nice run of games, quote-unquote nice run of games, where there's kind of teams in and around us. We've got some decent results. Forest we beat, Brentford we were able to get a result, Leeds we got a result as well, Palace we got a draw. We're in a nice run of momentum. We're beating the teams we expect to beat, which I think you can't always say for the Albion. And actually, when we were looking at that run, I think it was after the Leeds game, and we were going, look, we got Palace, we got Brentford, we got Villa, we've got Forest, and then Liverpool in bad form. Maybe we can put a run of games together. You always think that. There's one thing doing it, and then with Brighton, there's one thing saying it, and with Brighton, there's another thing doing it, you find. But actually, we've backed it up with performances, and as we go into a busy period, there will be options for more minutes. My question would be, I would like to see a bit more of Tommy Watson. I think, the player that we think he all can be, the player that we've seen in sparks and flashes in the Cup, for example, looks like an excellent prospect, clearly can't quite stay fit at the moment. But I think long term, he will be an excellent option for us. And it might always be, like you see with many Brighton players, they don't come completely into their own until their second season. You saw it with McAllister, Caicedo, you've seen it. It's a tale as old as time. You've seen it with Gruder as well this season. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for a player to bed in. But Brighton have nice options, and I think on that left-hand side, it looks like a really, really interesting, nice combination. Attacking, intense, flexible, versatile. We can play different options and just provides. I think one thing we're finding with this Hurzeler squad is you have a real breadth and depth of versatility in players. You have many players who can play in different positions, and actually not only just in attack, but actually in defensive positions. You've got midfielders who can play at fullback, you've got fullbacks who can play midfield, you've got wingers who can play up front, you've got wingers who can play at fullback. There's multiple options in this side, which I think is clearly an asset that Fabian Hurzeler rates. But I think it'll be really interesting. I think he will probably stick with those guys against Aston Villa. I think that's the right call to make. But I'll be very, very interested to see what you think and whether you think this is the secret weapon that can maybe unlock defences going forward for the Albion. Let me know what you think. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, you've got this far and you haven't done it already, please hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on. I would love to hear your thoughts and see you coming back to this channel. I really, really appreciate you watching. I will see you on the next video. And as always, up the Albion.